Okay, so for the ringmaster design we're going to use two different whites, and it's important to use the right white for the right part. So this is Paradise by Miron. This is a base white, it's nice and soft, it's easy to put all over your face, and this one is a strong one for dots. Try not to mix them up because it will be really hard to do each with the other. So we're going to start off with the base, which is the Miron white, and I've just given that paint a bit of a spray, and I'm going to go around with the sponge, and until the paint's dry. Again, you don't want any water sitting on the paint, and it's better to do this too dry than too wet because you can always go back and add more. So I'm just dabbing, I'm not dragging, because then that way you won't get full coverage. Dabbing this paint on and just gradually moving it around. Okay. Alright, so that's the beginning of the base. Just a top tip, if it's not symmetrical or you struggle with the cheekbones, just grab a regular baby wipe and just reverse out what you didn't need. So here it's a little bit higher. So just look from one side to the other and then just take out what you don't need, and that would be the easiest way of. The next thing we're going to do is the eyes, and we're going to use a brush and a sponge for this. So we're going to use a split cake with, this is a flat angle brush, and we're going to draw around the eyes and then fill in the centre with the sponge. Draw a line first just over where you want your colour to be. So I'm dipping my brush into a little bit of water, just a little bit, and working it backwards and forwards. It's important not to use too much water with these cakes or all the colours will merge together. So with the black and the long side on the outside, we're just going to paint slightly. So I'm just using the flat of the brush. It doesn't matter if this edge isn't perfect because we're going to be going over that with some shapes. And then you can use this brush either completely flat or you can use it on an angle. And I'm going to go into the same cake but not the black. I'm going to just try and avoid the black there. Again, important not to make this too wet. If it's too dry you can always go and add some more water, but if it's too wet it will run. So I'm just gently, these colours will just meld together now. Look up. Just being very careful, not just using the sponge on its side just so you're getting that that colour, and we're not painting on any of the white that we've done. We'll just try and get a smoother line under the eye. Okay, there you go, that's fine. So I'll just do the same thing on the other eye. So to get the shape around the eyes, we're going to use this soft Paradise black and a filbert brush, and we're going to print those petal shapes. So I'm just adding a little bit of water, working up a bit of a creamy consistency. Not too wet though, because we don't want excess. And then I'm basically just creating a little shape, a little kind of oval petal shape by printing that brush, so no drawing required. And you can vary the size of these, so on the top they can be a bit bigger. Just turn a little bit. And then just go around, making them a little bit smaller as you go around. And then you'll notice we've got the full shape of those. We then need to go back with that same sponge again and just get rid of the bottom of those. Just the bottom, don't touch the top of them. And then you can use the edge of the sponge just to do that underneath. You need to do that while it's still wet, which it will be for a few minutes, so you don't need to panic. So I'm going to use a crown stencil and a dauber with it's got a hole for your finger and a sponge on the end. So this is a really clean way of stenciling. So you put your dauber, I've not even put any more water in this, it's quite a creamy paint, and when you're stenciling you don't want any excess water because it will drip through the shapes, so this needs to be quite dry. And I would hold this, there's a little dot there in the middle, I would hold this so this dot is as central to the nose as you can, just making sure this filigree twirly bit here is just above where your eyes are, so they don't meet. And hold that down, just double check where that is, and then just use the dauber. I'm holding it quite firmly, not too firmly because you don't want to take any white off. Holding it quite firmly. I'll just grab a tiny bit more black there. Just twisted that into the creamy paint on the cake. And then to lift it off, let one side lift off and then peel it off. And then you can turn the stencil, so I'm going to use it the same way. But for the chin, we're just going to use 3 instead of that's got 5. So I'm going to use a clean sponge, my black and a brush, and then if you paint a line along here, it doesn't have to be particularly glamorous line. And then while that line is still wet, just take the sponge, don't go over the inside of the line, you need to leave the inside of the line. Just on the outside of the line, drag that paint out. So I'm going to use a sponge dauber, or you can use a brush, and my strong white, this is my Face Paints Australia white. And I'm going to grab a lid and spray some water in the lid, because this paint you can't spray water into or it will go gluggy and unpleasant. So I'm just going in and out of the water a few times, just until I've got a nice creamy, not watery consistency. See, I'm pressing down on the paint a bit because I want to get some of that paint moving. So the trick with dots is to get a nice amount of creamy paint, but not too wet. And then we're just going to go into each of these. Start on one sort of on the outside, just gently. Very gently, just popping a little bit of white in each one. And then this is quite a flat shape here, so I'm just going to use maybe 3 dots. Need a tiny bit more water there. And then descending sizes, so that's just less pressure. Just the last one is just a tiny touch. So for adding lipstick, we're just going to use the same paint again. Just catch the edge of the black. You can get mostly red, just the edge of the black and the edge of the orange. And then you're using this quite flat, so you get an automatic outline.